neuroscience, and our team consists of Kate, our leader, who's a rising fourth-year student studying bioengineering, Catherine, who's studying bioengineering and is a rising second year, and Hope, a rising fourth year, who's studying chemical and biomolecular engineering. So over the past few weeks, we've been visiting different hospitals and clinics, and when we were at CAF, we were in Dr. Animal's office, and we saw that there was a poster that said "One Baby, One Cot." This was an initiative that we weren't before aware of, and once we saw this poster, we realized that this is something that we want to look a little bit more into, and because of that, we are proposing to you our idea, the Multi-Cot. So basically, at a lot of large regional hospitals, they don't have enough resources, specifically space that's horizontal, for there to be enough beds for each individual baby. For example, at some larger hospitals, there's about 8 babies in one cot, which is really dangerous because of infection, but also it's difficult for mothers who are breastfeeding to have space to take care of their child.
Some of the implications of this problem are first, hospital-acquired infections, because multiple babies may have different diseases, so it's very easy to spread. Second is monitoring, so when the babies are very close together, it can be hard to monitor each condition. And lastly is referrals. Oftentimes babies have to be referred to hospitals farther away just for space considerations.
So overall, we see this problem as mostly a lack of horizontal space. And what I mean by that is there isn't enough space to add more cots to the room. It's just not possible. And so we were trying to think, how can we solve this problem? And one thing we thought about is, what if we make better use of the vertical space available? And so this kind of led to the idea of the multi-cot. And so basically it would be a multi-level system where each baby would have its own cot, but it would decrease the necessity for horizontal space and make better use of the vertical space. So some considerations that we thought of were height. So the device must be appropriate for the nurse's height to lift each baby from the cot. And so we talked to as many pediatricians as we could during our visits, and one pediatrician mentioned that she thought the maximum height would be around 1.5 meters, but of course everyone is different, so we were thinking that you could have an adjustable height. And there are mechanisms where you can do like a screw action and raise or lower a table or something like that, so we could apply it here. And then we were thinking maybe appropriate heights would be around the hips and then around the knees, just so the babies are accessible at every level. Another consideration was safety, of course. And so if you can imagine kind of reaching in to get a baby at a lower level, it's kind of awkward and you can't really reach in, and then you have to, you gotta make sure that the baby is safe when you're removing it. So we thought about this and we were like, what if each cot could be pulled horizontally so that it would remove any obstruction vertically when you're picking up the baby. So to demonstrate this, for the mid-level, could be pulled out horizontally. You can pick up the baby easily, safely, and then you can push it back in. And then for the lower level, you can do the same.
So we're very excited about the design aspect of this idea, but we do have quite a few considerations, especially if we are putting it into a very specific setting such as CAP. One, obviously being stability. You can't obviously compensate the structural stability of a cot if you are dealing with newborns. So that would mostly be addressed by our materials. We were assuming it'd be hard plastic, which also leads into the second point of visibility. You obviously don't want to have babies in cots if you can't see the babies themselves unless you pull them out. So materials really plays into that, as well as accessibility with the shelving units. Additionally, if we are building this remotely, say in the States, or even if it just needs to be shipped to different clinics or hospitals, the device needs to be very easily constructed and deconstructed. You shouldn't have to have a very technical background to be able to put it together. The stability definitely should depend on whether you got that one screw in tight enough. So that kind of leads us into one of the more important points sanitation. Obviously, as of now, there's a lot of hospital cross-infection between babies. So if we are going to isolate them into a cot that is their own, we have to make sure it's a safe environment. So plastic is pretty easily sanitized. The bedding can be easily taken out. Essentially, it can be easily deconstructed as much as you need to make sure that is a clean device. And finally, it obviously wouldn't be practical to make this device if it were exorbitantly more expensive than the cots that are currently being used. So hopefully, we would be able to make the cost as low or even lower than the current cots. So that concludes the information portion of the presentation, and we'd like to open it up for questions.
I think it's a brilliant idea. The idea that you're also thinking about congestion and space. But, I'm also thinking about the fact that, because of the availability of space, that's what I'm thinking about, multiple beds in that order. But if you think about the fact that you are going to have it move horizontally, that will take another space. So it means that there have to be spaces in between the beds. So that same strategy, if I have 3 beds, I can put them together and have the baby line up and pick them right from the top. If I space them, I take the same space because you have to create the room for the space to move the baby and pick it up. So you also have to think about that.
Definitely. I think we initially thought of it as 3 levels, but I feel like you could add levels if necessary, and so I think it's just about kind of compartmentalizing and say, even if you have, your 1 cot and then you need space, let's say an additional cot's worth of space, it's still saving 1 cot's worth of space, if that makes sense. So that's definitely something that we would need to consider. We also talked about potentially just observing from the pictures, the cots seem pretty big, so we were thinking that newborns didn't need as much space as a traditional cot. So that's another point.
Yes, and also sometimes the babies can move, so you might also need to put some additional guide. I don't know, it's not apparent, but it's not, I don't know what it is, I think.
So it's hard to see, but we wanted to make sure that it was clear so that every baby was easily visible. So we were thinking that would be clear plastic or something, but we did consider like a barrier.
And additionally, even though this cot would be portable because it has wheels, it could very easily be locked so it would be sensitive to the motion of the babies.
All right. I think this.
Bioengineering. No, we're okay. So we're bioengineering undergraduate students, but we do have a medical school. So it's right next door. It's like. Pardon? Yes, there's plenty of interaction between engineering, the medical school, the business, every school within the university is very much connected.
So we're all undergraduate students at the University of Pennsylvania, but in addition to having 4 undergraduate schools, there's also 12 graduate schools, one of which is a medical school, one of which is an engineering school, and then we have 10 other graduate schools as well.
Okay, Maria wants to talk. The professor is
We want to say.
Let your professor talk so that.
There's also a children's hospital right next to campus, which is a very good hospital. They could also help us with all of this.
So you can ask this one after we are done.
I think that I asked this because I think we have to also learn something. One course, just one baby, the whole babies, where we don't cover a way of utilizing that space where we make use of these dimensions, but still we will have this bridge. So I think the engineers are willing to take whatever the generator for now. We don't see this to do that.
That taking well. Okay, I hear you. All right. Yes, the guest student.
So do you actually hope to mold one at least?
That would, I think potentially that would be really great. I think it's something that we want to continue over the summer when we get back to campus and potentially over the school year if we get positive feedback.
All right, thank you very much. Just did a